Jake Tapper's career, the conclusion is it's in ruin. Sure, the bottom hasn't fallen out yet. He still has his money, but his reputation in journalism, that's all you have. And his is destroyed. But it didn't have to be that way. He refused to apologize. He's doubling down, which is what we accuse the media of all the time. Even when they try to confess about how bad things are, they're covering up lying and managing damage. Welcome to Doug in Exile. Here's Vic. We're going to get to Victor Davis Hansen. First, let's do Tapper. This is back in 2020, where he was very concerned about Trump walking down a ramp. So we can see that he can turn it on when it's time for a Republican.
And speaking of concerns, what did you make of President Trump? You see the video of him walking down that ramp at West Point, really slowly, really haltingly, kind of. And then you also saw the video of him seeming to have difficulty lifting a glass of water to his mouth, needing.
Oh, he's crippled, Jake. He's in decline. I'll bet he used the auto pen for everything. Oh, Jake Tapper has an amazing, microscopic look at detail when it comes to Trump. And then Biden, who's nearly walking around in a coma and nothing. The sirens never go off. You've heard me talk about even a two-tiered justice system. This is a two-tiered journalistic criteria, because he was about to call Trump just a decrepit of some kind, okay? Now here's Victor Davis Hansen on the conclusion of Jake Tapper's career. It's over.
For the last 4 years, again and again and again, if anybody questioned the obvious mental decline of Joe Biden, his cognitive difficulties, Jake Tapper, and went on CNN, Jake Tapper tore them apart. The locus classicus was Laura Trump, who said that he's obviously as early as 2020 in decline. And he suggested that she was berating him for a childhood stutter, which was absolutely ridiculous.
So he played some kind of a guard. Jake, the media bullies play some kind of a guard to keep everyone in bounds, your mind and your opinion. He knew to go out and be an attack dog of anyone who'd step outside of the CNN agenda, which is the Democrat Party. That's not journalism. Jake Tapper is a bully and a guard for manipulative apparatchiks.
Here is someone who promulgated the greatest cover-up in the history of the U.S. presidency, helped. And we were told that Joe Biden was fit as the fiddle. We had medical reports that obviously or mysteriously did not have one critical indicator that were apparent on the Trump and Obama presidential medical records releases. There was no PSA test, an indicator of the health or malignancy of one's prostate. That was a cover-up too, as we're starting to learn. But my point is this: no one was more instrumental in berating, maybe Joe Scarborough, but other than he, Jake Tapper tore apart anybody who suggested that Joe Biden was as cognitive in decline as they saw with their own eyes and heard him.
I like Victor Davis Hansen. That's actually a huge sick burn. Did you hear that? Jake Tapper was probably the worst outside of Joe Scarborough.
No one was more instrumental in berating, maybe Joe Scarborough.
It's a huge insult. Anytime you're compared to Joe Scarborough, it is the sickest burn. So Victor Davis Hansen, who I think of as a total gentleman, is actually smearing Jake Tapper's face in the poo-poo, going, you know what you're like? You're like the MSNBC guy, Joe Scarborough. And Jake Tapper's going like, no. It's like being compared to the worst of the worst.
When the Wall Street Journal wrote in a definitive story, Jake Tapper wrote them off as Murdoch Fox propagandists. Why are we here? Why did he write a book now? Well, the obvious answer is that Joe Biden has no power. And these media people in Washington they're like moths to a flame. They gravitate to power. And when you don't have power, you don't have friends, and there's no downside in telling the truth. Why didn't Jake Tapper write this a year ago? Because he knows what would have happened. Somebody in the White House would have called up and said, Tapper, no one from CNN is going to get a seat at a press conference. There's not going to be any CNN interviews. So he backed down. And now, in a very cowardly fashion, now he comes out and he is blaming the White House cover-up. But what he doesn't tell us is the White House cover-up would have been impossible had not CNN, MSNBC, PBS, NBC, ABC, CBS all conspired with the White House staff to downplay, not just downplay Biden's cognitive decline, but attack people.
What are the chances of 6 to 8 mainstream networks, not one of them came out and blew the whistle on Biden's obvious cognitive decline for 4 years? What are the chances? Any one of those could have saved their brand as truth-telling organizations and calling out the power, calling out manipulation. PBS could have done it. NBC could have done it. CNN could have done it. Any one person could have been brave, and now in hindsight, they would be seen as a hero. The idea that 100% of them knew, you stay in line or you will lose access to the White House, your career will be over. You'll just be done. So now it's not brave that any of them come out, because now to protect their career, they all have to rat out Biden and go, you know, he was kind of in decline. Now they have to hope that you have no memory and you just forget what happened for 4 years.
Bottom line, they had more interest in protecting this left-wing administration who was using this waxen effigy of Joe Biden. And for someone's purposes, we don't know who was running the country, who was giving him the auto pin executive orders. We don't have no idea who those people are. We have a suspicion it was the Obama crowd. But nevertheless, they didn't care about that. They did not care about that. All they knew is that this was a left-wing agenda and it had to be preserved by any means necessary. And that included lying, covering up, and worst of all, demonizing and attacking people who sought to tell the truth about Joe Biden.
Remember, if they don't care about that and they only care about power, that's another way of saying they do not care about a representative government. They do not care that the person that you vote for, or whoever voted for Biden, the fact that he's president, they have zero care in that institution. And that's what they always claimed was about Trump. They were always projecting. They're the ones who really don't care about representative government or what they call a democracy.
And now he wants to say what? I have a little humility. I may or not. I sort of kind of was part of the cover up, but now the real Jake Tapper is in this book, who's now telling truth to power. No, you're telling truth to impotence. Joe Biden has got cancer. He's written off. He's in decline. The family is disgraced. It's easy now to write about that. It was hard and would require intellectual courage, moral fortitude to say this when he was the most powerful man in the world. And so, Jake Tapper, you failed that test. And you should pay a penalty. CNN should look very carefully on whether they want to retain him, because this is one of the greatest acts of duplicity, moral duplicity I've seen in my entire life.
And Victor Davis Hansen's been around for a while. I'm going to conclude on that because I want that to sit in our heads for a long time. The Jake Tapper is one of the worst examples of duplicity and no integrity that he has seen in his entire life. And we call that man Jake Tapper. I'm Doug in Exile.